I'm very excited about this one. We're going to go over conditional loan approvals. And as I was preparing this lesson, I realized that we're going to have to do this in several parts. So this is part one. This is the overall strategy of mastering loan conditions. I highly recommend that you take your time in terms of going through each of these lessons so that you can have very successful closings. Let me give you a little bit of background on this strategy. So, in a very busy time in my career, whether I was starting out myself as a loan officer assistant or training other assistants, I found that starting sort of at the end of something and working your way back to the beginning gave me a quicker way of catching up to all the things that I didn't know. So that's what I like about this strategy is you're sort of picking up in the middle or towards the end of something, so that way you can review and realize, oh, these are the things that are always required on a loan. I can start asking for these things when I first set up a file or when I get a file ready for underwriting. I can start to keep these things in mind. So it's a great way to jump into training yourself on all the things that are needed on a loan file. What I recommend is with your loan officer, ask permission if you can handle the next conditional loan approval. So next time they're going to get a conditional loan approval, can you say to them, hey, let me handle this one, and then you can debrief with them after you've gone through all of the conditional loan approval steps. So let's go over, well, I just talked to you a little bit about this background, but the background of this strategy for my own personal experience as well as those that I have trained is that loan officer assistant training for the most part is self-taught. A lot of people are different types of loan officer assistants because they've adopted sort of a mix and match bag of styles, trainings that they've learned from either the loan officer they've worked with or other people in their community. And like I said, starting at the end of something will help you with the beginning. And this also is great practice for you to engage with those team players that we talked about in a previous lesson. Okay, so this is how you review your conditional loan approval when you first get it. You're going to read through the conditional loan approval and make your initial notes. Some things you may understand, some things you may not understand, but just go through and read it, without any kind of expectation. Try to understand it as best you can. Highlight anything that is most likely going to be required from the client, from the borrower. If you are unsure of something, put a Q next to that and write your question. So that way, when you are meeting with your team players, you know exactly where all your questions are because you put a big Q next to each one of those. And be sure to review all of the different statuses. Okay, so very quickly, these are a lot of acronyms here. So we've got prior to approval conditions, prior to doc conditions, that's the PTDs here. Then we've got prior to funding conditions, and then post-close conditions. So those are different conditions that are needed at different stages. But when you get the conditional loan approval, don't just read, okay, these are the things that we need prior to approval. I'm just going to work on those. And then once we get approval, then I'll look at the rest. No, go ahead and read the entire list because you may be able to be proactive about something now, even though it's not required until later. But if you can shrink that list, that makes your customer less stressed, it makes your loan officer less stressed, and it makes everything more smooth in terms of moving everything to the next stage. So once you've read everything, made your notes, indicated where you have questions, you are then going to schedule your meetings. So the first meeting you'll schedule, and this may be the only meeting you need, is with your loan processor. So you're going to schedule a meeting with your loan processor. You want to do that as soon as you can. If it's the same day as conditional loan approval, that'd be great. But most processors need a full day because they also may want to read through it or digest the information. So make sure that you make an appointment with them for the next day. Usually about 10-15 minutes is all you need. And when you had your upfront interviews with your team players, you should already know how this is going to go, because you would have established, or your loan processor would have said, this is how I handle conditional loan approvals. Now, some loan processors, they like to read through the conditional loan approval, make their notes, and then they just send you an email saying, this is what you take care of, and that's it. I'm going to handle everything else. And that's very nice, but I still recommend that you read through that entire list, just in case something gets missed. Now, other loan processors, they do want to interact with you. They want to go over everything. They want to answer any questions that you have. They may ask questions of you. So there may be a little bit of back and forth. So it's best to set up a Zoom or Teams meeting or phone call meeting to go over this conditional loan approval. And at the end of the meeting, it should be understood who is doing what. Now, after you meet with your loan processor, that may be fine. And that may be the end of your meetings and the end of this trading right here. But I'm going to go through a few more people that you may need to meet with. So the next person would be your underwriter. You and your loan processor may come across a condition where neither one of you understand what it is. And the person that made that condition is the underwriter. So you want to reach out to the underwriter, either jointly with the loan processor, say, hey, the two of us would like to get on the phone with you. Or the loan processor may just say, I'm going to ask the underwriter, or you, loan officer assistant, you please ask the underwriter. So just make sure we know who's responsible for what. But ask the underwriter, hey, I don't understand this requirement that you asked for. What is it that we're supposed to get? Or can you give me some more details about what this means? And at the end of the day, you don't want to waste the underwriter's time. You don't want to waste the customer's time. You certainly don't want to waste your time. So you're sharing with the underwriter, hey, I'm just getting in front of this. I want to make sure I'm very clear on what it is that you need so that I'm not wasting your time. Then if you have the luxury of an operations manager, they are someone that can also help decipher conditions. So if the underwriter is not available, the processor is not available, and you really need an answer to your question, an operations manager is a great resource as well if you happen to have one. If you don't have an operations manager, you may have a branch manager. You may have someone that's in charge of your entire office. Now, if that is also your loan officer, I'm going to encourage you to hold off on asking them any questions until you've exhausted all of your other resources, because that's what we do here, is we save asking the loan officer questions for the very end. And that's because we want them to focus on getting business, right? Now, if you work in the wholesale or correspondent channel, you may have access to an account executive. So that is someone that is a representative of the lender. So you may not be the lender yourself, or you may not work at a company that does their own mortgage products. You may your loan officer may choose to send something to another lender. That lender should have some kind of representative, account executive, account manager, someone like that you can reach out to and say, hey, I have this list of requirements and there's a few things I don't quite understand. Can you help walk me through it so I know what to ask for and what to get? And they should be pretty helpful. Also, they normally have a direct line to underwriting. So if they are unsure how to answer your question, they certainly will loop in the underwriter if you were unable to get a hold of them to begin with. And then last but certainly not least is your community here, your loan officer assistant community. So other people that are doing the same job that you're doing. They could be in your office, they could be in a Facebook group or a school community. You can certainly drop your questions in our school community and we will get you answers to your questions. Now, once you have your list of all of the things that are needed from the customer, the term that we usually use in the industry is calling out the condition. So whether you're doing it by email or calling on the phone, but I do recommend that you first do it on the phone. Either do it through a phone call or Zoom call. Now, you may have a workflow with your loan officer where they don't want you to contact the customer, and that's okay. What you're going to do is just organize that list. So you're going to email that list to the loan officer and say, these are all the outstanding conditions. Now, for the loan officer, you may want to make the list more robust than what they're going to tell the customer. So you could tell the loan officer, these are the 6 things that we need from the client, and these 4 things the processor is handling. So just FYI, the processor is handling some corrections from the appraiser, they're getting the insurance, and whatever else that they're working on, whereas you're going to tell the loan officer, I need these 6 things from the client. Now, if you are dealing with the client directly, you're going to have that phone call with them, go over all of the list of the things that they need, because they may also have questions. Well, why do you need page 4 of my bank statement when it's blank? And you'll just have to tell them, well, we need to prove that it's blank, and the only way to prove that it's blank is to get a copy of that page. They're like, okay. So you go through that list of what you need from them. Make sure you give them a deadline. Don't trust that they'll give you these things within 24 hours, but we normally suggest to people 24 hours in order to keep the loan moving. Now, if they tell you, oh, it's going to take me a day or 2 to get my 401k statement, just really encourage them. Hey, can you give us everything else? Can you give us 5 of these 6 items by tomorrow? And then we know it'll take you a few days to get your 401k statement. Can I count on you to give us the 5 by tomorrow at 3 o'clock? And then just hold them to that. So when you send a recap email, you'll send, this is the list of everything that we need. The first 5 you're going to get to us tomorrow by 3 o'clock. And the last item you'll get to us once you have that from your 401k administered. And then be sure to have a secure way to get those documents from your customers. So if they have banking information, social security information, anything that's personal or private, you want to make sure you have a secure portal that they can upload things to, or a secure email way to get documents from them, or you can instruct them to encrypt anything that's sent over to you through email. So make sure you have a secure way to collect those items. And then put a follow-up plan for yourself. Make sure that you have on your calendar or in your CRM the day and time that you're going to follow up on those items. Okay, so in terms of this condition strategy, so I'm going to wrap things up with some things to keep in mind when you are reviewing these conditions. When you're reading that list, understand why the condition is needed and have a plan to obtain all the requirements, even if you're not the one that's handling it. You want to make sure that if the processor says that they're doing something, that you have a follow-up plan for them as well. I'll tell you a little story. We had a processor who was very excited that she got her conditional loan approval, and it was very clean, and there weren't a lot of borrower requirements. So she was able to expedite getting everything to close very quickly, but she did not review the prior to funding conditions. And there was a final inspection needed from the appraiser to confirm that something had been fixed. So she got everything ready. She got the loan documents out to the customer. They signed. Everybody was excited. Oh, the loan's going to close early. This is great. And the closer said, okay, I just need that final inspection report, and then we can close. And she, oh, I didn't look. I didn't read the prior to funding conditions. I just read the conditions that were needed to get the documents out. So we then had to wait a few days, I think it was maybe a day or 2, to close while we waited for that final inspection. So that's why it's so important to read through all the conditions, have a plan for each requirement, whether it's needed at the beginning or at the end or even after closing. Make sure everybody has ownership on that with clear communication about who is doing what. And then remember, follow up. Make sure that nothing is slipping through the cracks by keeping track of who's responsible for what and when it is due, and then double and triple check. One thing too to take note of is you may get this initial conditional loan approval. You gather those items from the borrower, you send it back to the underwriter, and the underwriter says, okay, great, let me check off everything that you've sent in. But now that you've sent in this 401k statement, I have an additional question. So there could be more requirements that come even after you send in those first few conditions. And that's just because it now opens up more questions that the underwriter could possibly have. So be sure to warn your borrower of that as well. This is your list, but the underwriter has the prerogative to ask for more items up until we close, and sometimes even after we close if there's an audit on your file. So just let the customer know these are things that are just needed to cross T's and dot I's in order to make sure that their loan is approved and we are all set to close. All right, so with that,